Hello, my name is Rick Jacobs, and my artifact video is titled Females in Engineering, a Gender Gap. It will address and explore the inequalities that exist with females entering the field of engineering. However, it applies equally to other aspects of STEM education, namely science, technology, and mathematics. This presentation is comprised of 4 components. I will begin by identifying a major issue associated with females in the field of engineering, that is, their underrepresentation in this discipline in both post-secondary institutions and in industry, supported by statistics. My artifact comes in the form of exploring this topic from my personal perspective as an instructor at a post-secondary institution in 3 different engineering disciplines. In this aspect, I will include current statistics and trends as comparative data to see how they may align with industry. In the last section, I will refer to the literature for suggestions regarding females in engineering disciplines. What are the payoffs if we are successful in increasing their participatory numbers?
Usually when I tell people I'm an engineer, they look at me and they say, "Ha, no, really, what do you do?" Or they look at me and say, "Oh, whoa, you must be some kind of genius." Or my favorite is when I told my mother I wanted to major in engineering. She said, "Ew, why?"
Recent data from Engineers Canada indicates that although women make up more than half of Canada's population, they comprise only 13% of all practicing and licensed engineers. Some sources have these values somewhat higher. However, there is a Canada-wide initiative to reach 30% by 2030. I would suggest that, similar to Connell and Pierce's discussion on the question of gender, these are not just boundaries but inequalities in society. Accompanied with unequal respect, these statistics are not only unfair but unsustainable.
When it comes to women, girls and women and going into the sciences, what happens in this country? Because we look at what's happening in high school and college, and there are so many more young men who are moving in that direction than young women. Why is that?
Well, we get lots of young women going into chemistry and biology. Many of those think they're going to go to med school afterwards. But we get very few young women going into computer science and physics and areas of engineering. And we even know the reason why it's the case. It's because, number 1, they think it's not interesting. And number 2, they think they wouldn't be good at it. And number 3, they have this image of the people in those fields that they don't think is attractive. And what we encourage our young people to do in this country is follow your passion. Well, if you don't think it's interesting and you don't think you do well at it, would you go there? Probably not.
The previous video focused only on the female students themselves, but I believe there are more issues at play here. This chart shows data from 2016, showing the percentages of women that recently graduated from post-secondary engineering programs across many countries. Not all of them are in the workforce, explaining why these numbers are slightly higher than those reported by industry. Notice that Canada has 18.5% graduates, but only 13% of them are in the active workforce. According to a research study on female engineers and their career socialization into a male-dominated occupation in 1992, Eden determined that women chose engineering because of challenges and interests guided from strong paternal influences. They liked their work, but they experienced difficulties because of gender discrimination, occupational requirements, and the parenthood career dilemma. She continued that this resulted in their desire to make a career change, despite their job satisfaction, to other occupations that would give them greater flexibility in working hours and perhaps be more emotionally rewarding. This chart shows data from 2010 of the percentages of women that were enrolled in post-secondary engineering programs across Canada, from undergraduate to doctoral studies. Even though this data set is almost 10 years old, the overall trend has not changed to date. There still remains approximately 20% of females enrolled in post-secondary engineering programs. You will see that in my working context, at a technical diploma level of applied learning, this number drops even further. My working context is a post-secondary school for applied science and technology located within Alberta. The courses I directly instruct in include petroleum engineering, geological technology, and chemical engineering technology. I will be looking at data sets reflecting male versus female enrollment that span for the most part the last 3 academic years. The 4 pictures you see in front of you are the students in various situations or actual students that I had last year. All these pictures are used under permission. While in the process of selecting an artifact, my search led me to the current enrolled user list acquired from an active learning management system at my institution. This list includes all 3 of the previously mentioned engineering technologies. A quick glance at the first 11 names on the list revealed that only 1 was female, represented by Agatha, that I circled here in red. Immediately I recognized this as less than 10% of the user population. I then decided to expand my search to include all 262 participants from the recently completed academic term and compare the enrollment statistics including the 2 years before that. In total, an analysis was performed on a data set comprised of 874 students. Breaking down year upon year, the 2016-17 academic year saw female enrollment at 15%, 2017-18 female enrollment at 12%, and finally 2018-2019 enrollment dropping again to 10%. This negative trend continues despite active and ongoing recruitment strategies in an attempt to expose more potential female candidates to these 3 engineering disciplines. Although female engineers are severely underrepresented across all of the engineering disciplines as a whole, this is not the case for all engineering specialties. According to an Engineers Canada survey from 2016, females are more represented in biological, environmental, and geological technologies. To test the accuracy of this within my own working context and artifact, I separated the geological technology from the other 2 and calculated similar results. In my institution, the geological technology program is subdivided into an environmental stream and an exploration stream. Nonetheless, taken as a whole in 2018-2019, females represented 21% of total geological student enrollment. In 2019-2020, female participation will jump considerably to 44%. There is no immediate cause for this fluctuation, and the data needs to be carefully analyzed in response to a fairly small sample size. It is worth noting that during these same 3 academic years, the ratio of male to female instructors has remained static at 25%. According to Pardo et al., 2016, universities are currently taking further steps to promote equal opportunities between men and women. Although they remain a minority, female engineering undergraduate student enrollment has increased over the past few years in many countries. Interviews with female graduates often highlight their determination to overcome disadvantages in their studies as opposed to men, in courses they often feel were not intended for them. In a 2018 study by Beddoes, 7 steps were identified to address policies related to underrepresentation of females in undergraduate engineering education. It is important to point out that this isn't an exhaustive list, but it is a good starting point. Number 1, admission policies. A significant gender bias often occurs, and the author suggested reviewing the weighting on some standardized testing that men have shown to do better at than women. Number 2, first-year programs and transferring into engineering. Also an admissions issue. It may affect underrepresented groups who may not have had exposure to engineering prior to post-secondary. Number 3, recruitment policies. Expanding recruitment efforts beyond AP Science and Math can lead to increased female enrollment. Number 4, attrition policies. Post-secondary institutions need to acquire better data so they can work on strategies to keep females in engineering programs to completions. Number 5, full-time enrollment policies restrict flexibility, especially with mothers. 6 and 7 are faculty related. Tenure and promotion criteria. This currently doesn't, but should include some sort of criteria regarding evidence of female recruiting and maintaining enrollment. And finally, the author suggested successful completion of a gender studies course should be a requirement of the faculty hiring process. I feel this would go a long way to minimize the power over effect dominated by males. It's as described by our readings in Bruner, 2005.
Yeah, sure, 'cause some girls like princesses and tiaras, and I like that stuff too. But there's so much more to us than that. There's so much potential. And for me, I couldn't be more happy to be putting my engineering skills into this product, because it leverages not only the math and science that I worked so hard to learn, but it also leverages my creativity. And engineering is such a creative thing, and I never knew it. And it's so fun for me to get to use my creative voice and my artistic skills as a part of engineering. And it's so important that we include that perspective. And the other thing that's so great about it is engineering is for people. We're designing things for people. So how fun for me to get to spend my time playing and learning with little girls and understanding what their needs are and designing things for them. It couldn't be more rewarding.
When I consider Debbie Sterling's comments, it reminds me of a quote from Donalda Dickey, in that play is pleasant, work is pleasanter, and achievement is pleasantest of all. Thank you for your attention.